All right, good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Common Council for Tuesday, October 17th. If you please press your aye and confirm buttons. Oh, my God.
Oh.
Okay.
11 are present, Your Honor.
All right, we have a quorum. We'll proceed. If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, as we now enter the season of autumn, with changes in weather, we're reminded that life is continually changing. Let us, as community leaders, adapt to these changes we face and continue to build a better Green Bay. Let us be steadfast in our commitment to helping those who need employment and creating opportunity for people to prosper. Let us be steadfast in caring for each and every individual, that they feel the presence of community and opportunity. We know that an open heart to you and an open mind to progress will keep the government of the people open to lifting lives of our fellow citizens. We ask tonight for your gift of wisdom and compassion for all elected leaders as we make decisions to elevate the changing community in which we lead. As always, we ask for your special blessings to all our military personnel, especially those serving on the USS Green Bay. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. Motion by Alderman Nicholson, second by Alderman Duane, to approve the minutes of the October 3rd meeting. What do you want to talk about here? Seeing no lights, all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays. The ayes have it, and the minutes have been approved. I entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderperson Dorff. What do you want to do here? Seeing no lights, all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays. The ayes have it. The agenda before you has been approved.
Report by the mayor.
Just a couple things. We sent out the calendar, the budget calendar, I think in June. And I want to confirm these dates and times. I think it's important because we need the public to know. But today is obviously the 17th, and next week you receive, as it says on here, the budget books. On 10/24, we have on 11/7, we have a meeting scheduled for 3 o'clock. Is that solid? And then on 11/14, we have a budget meeting at noon. I just think if that, I want to make sure those dates are good, that they're strong. It's 11/7 at 3 o'clock and 11/14 at noon. So one is joint personnel and finance, and 11/14 is noon. Pardon me? Okay, Chris, let me get that. Great, Alderman Weary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to suggest if we could move the budget meeting, I would appreciate it. I will not be able to get off work that day, and I'd probably get here at 4, 4:30, 5, anywhere in there. I'm sure I think Alderman Stoyer works as well. Yeah.
Do you want to wait on that, or do you want to get back to me on it?
No, I would suggest, we would like to have about 12 people here, Your Honor, so I know it's, it's,
All right, so
say 4 o'clock.
you guys okay moving that meeting to 4 o'clock, the budget meeting? It's scheduled for noon on 11/14. We can move that to 4 o'clock without any objections? 4 o'clock it is. All right, so 11/7, personnel and finance at 3 o'clock. 11/14 is the budget meeting. We'll begin our council meeting. That's a full council meeting. We'll begin that at 4 o'clock. All right. Okay, I had one other thing. Let's Salvation Army, they're kicking off their campaign. They were in ringbells.org. They're just looking for people, and I know a lot of you do that, and people who watch this program, or they watch the council meeting, ring bells, and they're just looking to get people to sign up. I have the folder on my desk. If you need any information, but you can just go online, Salvation Army, and that'll direct you to where you can ring bells. And that concludes my report.
We're on to announcements.
Alderman Weir, did you have anything? Yeah, I do have one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And sorry, I don't really have this prepared much, but I just found out Harold Kay passed away this afternoon. And
No.
that's sad news. I think we've all known Harold over the years. World War II vet, Green Bay fireman, Brown County supervisor. He always told it like it was, whether you wanted to hear it or not. Good, solid neighbor, good father, a friend, and he'll be missed. So, thanks.
Oh. Yeah, that's sad. Alderman Tom DeWayne?
Yeah, thank you, Honor. As you know, Your Honor, you were at my dad's wake, and you and city staff, the council, it really meant a lot to me. We buried him yesterday, and he is really in a good place right now. 93 years old. Chief Smith, God, I did that twice now. Thank you. Alderman Zima, Alderman Stoyer, Alderman Vanderleest, and Alderman Chicano, all of you had gotten a hold of me, but those there really meant a lot. Staff. So I know I'm cracking up here, but he's in a good place, and now I can go on, and our family's doing really good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And Alderman Stoyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Piggybacking on that, to keep Tom's family in prayer and also my family in prayer. My wife's mother passed last Monday, and we're going through a hard time as well. So just keep us in thought and prayer as well, and I keep Tom's family in thought and prayer as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, clerk, I don't see any other lights.
We're on to public hearings. General Ordinance Number 16-17, an ordinance amending Section 13-2013 I-2 of the code relating to mitigation of multiple message signs, and Planning Ordinance 6-17, an ordinance amending the official city map to approve a plat of right-of-way for Erie Road from East Mason Street to Pattywood Lane.
So is there anyone here tonight who'd like to speak to either of these two items? Is there anyone wishing to be heard? Anyone want to comment on this? Okay, we'll let the record show that no one came forward.
You may, under suspension of the rules, take up items 22 and 23 with a roll call vote.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Dave Nenning to suspend the rules for that purpose. All in favor of suspension, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. Motion to adopt. Motion to adopt by Alderman Scannell, seconded by Alderperson Dorff. Please use the board here. It's 22 and 23. All right, and that's passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay.
We're on to appointments. Green Bay Public Arts Commission, Matt Buchanan.
It's a motion by Alderman Nicholson, second by Alderperson Dorff to approve the appointment of Matt Buchanan to the Public Arts Commission. Discussion here. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. That appointment has been confirmed. Thank you.
We're on to referrals of petitions and communications. On page 1 of your packet, you have all petitions and communications received by the clerk's office by noon on Thursday. We will now accept any late communications you may have.
We'll begin with Alderman Stoyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is to Historic Preservation and the Law Department. A resolution to urge the President of the United States and the United States Congress to continue the federal historic tax credit program. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman John Vanderleest.
This is the traffic, bicycle, and pedestrian to install signs on Beach Street Drive from 9th Street South on Beach Street Drive down the block. Signs that are related to children at play type signs, slow down traffic. There's a lot of small children on this street.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, do you have any late communications?
Yes, I do. For Protection and Welfare Committee, application for a Class A liquor license by Singe's C Store 2, Inc. at 952 West Mason Street.
All right, see no lights. Entertain a motion to refer. All right, there's a motion by Alderman Randy Scannell, second by Alderman Tom Slotnick to refer all petitions and communications. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it, and those petitions and communications have been referred to the proper authority.
Report of the Park Committee.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Randy Scannell, second by Alderman Dave Nenning, to approve the report of the Park Committee. That was for the meeting held on Wednesday, October 11th. Are there any items in this report you wish to handle separately? Seeing no lights, all in favor of that report, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. That report's been approved.
Report of the Plan Commission.
All right, we have a motion by Alderman Dave Nenning, second by Alderman Randy Scannell, to approve the report of the Green Bay Plan Commission for the meeting held on Monday, October 9th. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately? Seeing no lights, all in favor of that report, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it, and that report's been approved.
Report of the Public Arts Commission.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Bill Galvin, to approve the report of the Public Arts Commission for the meeting held on Wednesday, September 27th. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately? Seeing no lights, all in favor of that report, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it, and that report's been approved.
Report of the Redevelopment Authority.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Randy Scannell, second by Alderperson Barb Dorf, to approve the report of the Green Bay Redevelopment Authority for the meeting held on Tuesday, October 10th. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately? Two? One. Okay, hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it, that report has been approved. What are your wishes regarding item one? Motion to approve by Alderman Randy Scannell, second by Alderman Joe Moore. Alderman Nicholson?
Thank you, Mayor. Can someone answer a question on how much a parcel's being sold for?
Sure.
What's the dollar amount?
Right, Dr. Bonk?
Sure. With this, the city currently owns 2 parcels out there totaling about 28 acres of land. The city will be selling that to the developer for $700,000. The city will also be acquiring 2 smaller parcels with a cost not to exceed $400,000. I think we've got those wrapped up for about $360,000, and we'll be transferring those to the developer at no cost.
Parcels are 400,000 together?
Correct. So the 2 parcels that we are selling, 2 parcels that the city currently owns, that's $700,000 into the levy. Those are levy funds. Those are it's a levy purchase.
Right.
The 400 or the 360 that will be used to purchase the additional 2 parcels, that is a TID 12 expense, and the funds for that purchase will come out of the TID and is considered part of the incentive of this project.
Okay, so basically 400,000 is the price on the 2 parcels
For the whole package.
for the whole package.
You would net, yes, roughly
Okay.
about that. Yep,
Thank you.
correct.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Alderman Slotnick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a follow-up question. Kevin, do I understand the $400,000 for the acquisition of the 2 smaller parcels? Does that include the cost of demolition?
It will, yes, not to exceed the 400 with that, and we believe that we can accomplish it for that cost.
And is that 400 then part of the $3 million cap on the tip incentive?
That is in addition to the 3 million pay-go on the back end. So the 400 you would consider more or less an upfront expense. In terms of where that money is coming from, as you know, TID 12 has a positive cash balance, so we would use the amount in TID 12 to pay for that, so there would not be any bonding for it.
Okay, so as I look at the cap, it says the city shall not be obligated to pay TIF incentive in excess of $3 million. Should that really be $3,400,000 then?
We can look at that as a technical clarification. I'll talk with the attorney on that. I think the consideration was that we're not actually paying them that money. That is a separate action that the city has taken, and that that we would purchase those parcels and turn them over to the developer. There is a place in there, should the environmentals come back, there's an option that the developer does not have to take them. But it was discussed with the redevelopment authority and economic development authority. They felt like this parcel should be purchased by the city given our interest in the adjacent parcel. So that's why it was not counted in that 3 million cap.
It would seem to me that if the TIF is gonna purchase the parcels and basically then deed those parcels over to the developer, that should be considered part of the TIF incentive. It's coming out of the TIF, right?
Correct. Would you like the language then to read not to exceed then 3.4 million, so that would be accounted for within there?
Yes, I think that would be more accurate.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think, I want to get that motion second and amended, but our attorney has a comment first, and then I'll go back to you. Go ahead.
I would just like to add clarifying language to that includes the purchased property. This way, there's no dispute as to whether or not that's 3.4 in cash or 3.4 total, including land transfers.
But there's 3.4 in value total.
Correct.
All right.
So
That-
I think that's what the item ought to reflect.
Okay. Kevin, where is that?
It's on page 5F, right at the very top.
So we're going to amend, there's a motion by Alderman Slottick, seconded by Alderman Scannell, to amend item 2 in the development agreement to 3.4 million, which, did you want to put that in there, Vanessa, that it includes?
Yeah, it can be as simple as just saying inclusive of property transfers.
Okay, so the motion is to amend this to $3.4 million, including property transfers. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay.
Your Honor, can you explain number 2? Can you have Dr. Vaughn explain number 2 to me? I mean, I can read it, and I just want to make sure what I'm voting on here.
Okay. The TIF incentive?
Right?
No, I want to take a motion to adopt as amended.
Make a motion to adopt.
There's a motion by Alderman Moore, second by Alderman Scannell, to adopt this as amended. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. The ayes have it, and that's been approved. So Nature's Way is here. Thank you for doing this. We're looking forward to the expansion and your commitment to the city. All right. We're now on to item 2. What are your wishes regarding this report? There's a motion by Alderman Moore, second by Alderman Scannell. Did you pull 2? And I'll get to Tom then. Okay, Alderman Moore?
Thanks, Your Honor. It's taken 18 months to get to this point now. I think that the RDA, we had a lot of information here on the development agreement between the city and the RDA, and I think that this development agreement is pretty good. I think that item number 3 on this report, which was referred back for further study, I think it does still need a little bit of work. I still think it leaves some things on the table where I think we need to talk more about this. And obviously, number 2, this development agreement, we can't get shovels in the ground until item number 3 is resolved. And so I think that we can take action on the development agreement tonight. I think it's a positive step to keep moving this forward. I also think it's important for the council and the public to know that if we can't come to an agreement on a management agreement, that this project will continue to be kind of in a quagmire and stuck in the mud. So I want to offer an amendment to item number 2, which would be to approve the development agreement with the City of Green Bay and the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Green Bay for the Shipyard Outdoor Event Center, contingent upon a management agreement being approved by both City and RDA to execute upon City Council's final approval.
Right.
And then I would just speak quickly on this. I think because we are voting on the development agreement, I think it's really important to mention the lending on here, coming from Huntington Bank. I would ask Director Vonk if you could just kind of clarify a little bit more what the advantages of having Huntington over bonding on this project are, although I would mention right away that if this is being acted and executed like a construction loan would be, that each draw that's taken, every dollar has an assigned and appointed place that it's going. So it kind of sets mind at ease that it's Huntington that pulled out of one project and they're very interested in another, but the audit is built in. So I will give up the floor. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Vonk, what, yours then, right? Talk about the financing, but why don't you just review the project for Alderman Dwayne as well as everyone else?
Sure. I can go in and just hit the highlights. I can go over the presentation amended that I did at RDA. I guess it's your pleasure in terms of how detailed you want me to go
I
into at
just
this
wanted
point.
to make sure, are we just buying the property up right now? Are you making an agreement, developing an agreement that this goes forward when we don't really have all the answers? I don't typically like to do that, so, I would vote against this and just wait for it to come back and then I know for sure what's happening.
Sure.
I'm not gonna vote for something that says, well, it's not complete.
Sure. What this development contemplates is the authority to move forward with the shipyard redevelopment project. And the main component of that project, as we've talked about, there's, kind of a few different facets in terms of the neighborhood redevelopment. The main portion of the project is the construction of an outdoor event center, a facility that we've been discussing, for quite some time in terms of, holding 4,000 for sporting events, up to 8,000 for concerts. And it also includes some additional amenities in terms of some waterfront improvements, waterfront enhancements, and as well as some parking along associated with that area. Part of it includes what's before you today, and I think as Alder Moore had talked about, would be contingent upon us securing a management agreement with an operator to operate it. And it would also be included that we would need to secure some type of agreement for a private entity, which we've been talking about, an indoor performance venue or a full-service restaurant to be a part of the project. Both of those things would need to be completed by the end of the year before, as Alder Moore said, we'd put a shovel in the ground or start spending any money on it.
I can understand that and I appreciate that, but when we first started this, it was all with the fact that Doozie's was on board and you had the concert hall attached to it, and they were gonna come forward with their financing and stuff like that. It seems to me when we wanted to do this, it was based on all three to make it successful. And we don't have those other two in there yet. I'm just wondering why it's separated now and nothing's come forward. Because to me, it ain't gonna make it on its own.
Sure.
We need more than that.
We're not gonna,
And it's been a couple of years now, 18 months, whatever. And now we're trying to get away from the fact that two other parties were coming on board with this. And I'd like to see that come forward or hear what they're gonna bring or what it's gonna cost us.
I think what we're looking at is, we've had a bunch of moving parts in terms of, again, we've got a very complex, complicated project where we have a lot of parties who want to be involved in this project. And, those two parties are really looking for a commitment from the city. And I think how this is structured is that by approving a development agreement, it at least provides a certain degree of certainty that the city is moving ahead with the project and enables those private parties to spend time, to spend resources, on attorneys and whatnot, putting together, further conceptual plans and legally binding documents upon which they're going to be bound. I don't think, we're kind of at a point where we've reached a lot of agreement in concept, but in order for them to move to that spot where they're actually, doing those documents, there's hesitation to do so if there's not going to be a commitment from the city. So I think the agreement with the contingencies built in, I'd agree in terms of, not moving forward, not going it alone, putting in the agreement that we have to have at least one of them in. I would agree that I think both of them are important to, success and the vibrancy of this. Given the timeframes that we're looking on for construction, I feel that, look, at least having one locked up by the end of the year gives us some certainty that we're not going it alone. And it also provides the opportunity, again, I'm not saying that if it moves forward, we can't add other parts later, but I feel it's important, for the success of this project to have at least one other piece come along.
Well, the way I look at it is, we keep doing this, and down the line, we make this agreement, and you're just setting this up for City of Green Bay paying more and more. We can easily write something up, they can come back, tell us what they need, and they can put it in there saying, listen, this is what we'll do, this is what we'll pay, but, it's based on whether or not Green Bay does this, and then we're on board. So that way, we know what's going on. You know darn well, we pass this, and then the next thing you're looking at, they're gonna say, well, we gotta do this, we got them by the, I won't say it, but because, they're building this, they need us. And, hey, next thing we know, we're $3-4 million into each one, and
Sure, and I guess I would, respectfully disagree in the sense of, I think part of what we're talking about in this development agreement, the cost going up in terms of an additional money put towards enhancements, and that is parking infrastructure to be able to provide parking on the strip of land that we own between the railroad tracks and Broadway, to provide parking under Mason Street, and also to provide some of the waterfront amenities, putting in the trail, boat access, play area. These are things that have come up through our discussions with those parties saying, look, we want to go there, but we also need some things that are going to help our business and help us succeed. And I think by, taking a stand in terms of, look, committing to some of those things up front, we can provide that. If there is going to be, and again, because we haven't gone through, the full extent of the project yet, if there were to be any additional asks, those would have to come through council. But I think we're also in a spot that what we're providing in terms of that incentive is we're providing a facility that's going to generate traffic, that's going to generate people coming to that area, which for them is the inducement. And that is, what's getting them to be interested in this project is, being able to be attached to this facility and being able to be attached, to a neighborhood in which we're going to be providing a great amount of investment.
okay. I just feel that, listen, you tell them, we work with you, the incentive for them is to come forward and say, listen, it's gonna pass a lot easier if we know what you want, what you're gonna do. And I think it's just a reversal. I mean, it's just my opinion. We go through with this right now, and their incentives are gonna be much higher. What needs are gonna be much higher. And it's gonna be hard for anybody to say no to them, because we already got the first phase already done. It's pretty much opening up the pocketbook for them. And that's just the way I'm looking at it. And I gotta protect my constituents. I really would have liked to have seen them come forward with something and say, listen, we'll show you that we're interested in, and we need you to be on board. Here's what we have, and hopefully we can get something done. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Slotnick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm nervous about this one and the level of risk associated with it. And I heard Director Vonk say that when Alderman Dwayne asks about the other two players, that they want to see a commitment from the city, which is what this would be. I don't think it'd be unreasonable for us to ask for a similar commitment from them. So just like we can pass this contingent upon them doing their part, well, can't they give us something that commits them to do their part contingent upon us passing this? Then at least we know if we pass this, that they've stated, in writing at some level, that they're gonna go ahead with the restaurant project and the Performing Arts Center. I feel like that would bring down the risk level of something I'd be more comfortable with.
because we won't go it alone. I mean, we need one of those two type of facilities to commit to this by the end of the year. That's what this calls for.
But I'm hearing that those two entities are waiting until they see a commitment from us.
Right.
What I'm saying is I think we're entitled to the same consideration. Why don't they give us a contingent commitment so we know that they're are really gonna move forward here?
Okay, I think that's what this is.
Sure. I think one of the things, again, thank you for your question, Alderman Slotnick. You know, one of the pieces we're at in terms of all these pieces moving around, looking for somebody to put a stake in the ground, I think where we've come to a point where in order for them to make that commitment, it's going to require them investing substantial amount of additional resources to work on both the design, the concepts, and crafting of the legal document, which I think in terms of risk, if they're not certain that the city is on board with it, that's a lot of time and expense for them to invest without having a surety that the city has some interest in doing so. I feel we are at a point from a city that the way the agreement is structured, that this approval, you know, for us, I mean, looking at incurring additional city expense, I think, yeah, there's some staff time that's involved in it, but we're pretty much kind of at where we're at in terms of us expending additional funds on there. We won't do so until they bring their commitment forth. And I think this is, we're kind of at a stalemate of waiting for one of the other parties to go forward. And I think that's, you know, what they're looking for is some certainty from the city that if they do take the time to invest some of those resources, and, you know, I think I will, you know, look at both these two parties, but also, you know, Big Top and Broadway Events LLC in the same manner. You know, we're getting to a point where, look, we spend a lot of time and resources, and, you know, what's the point in spending a lot more time and resources if we're going to get to it and the council does not have an appetite for it? And I think the way this was presented is to be put in a place that, you know, it's a little bit more, it's got a little more teeth than the term sheet. I think the term sheet, you know, that came through here, that passed, you know, kind of gave the sense like, look, council's on board with this. I think that was a pretty solid vote. You know, what we proposed in the development agreement in terms of the management agreement, I think reflect some of that in the term sheet and almost all of it. And what they're looking for is, look, a point of commitment that we can continue to move forward on this, and not get to a point where, all right, we've invested all this and then it's for naught. And I feel that's where the parties are at.
Do you think that they would be willing to give us even a letter of intent?
I mean, I think they've, you know, come forward publicly and spoken about their desires to be part of this project. You know, I don't know if that's different than a letter of intent. I mean, I also feel in terms of a letter of intent still might be non-binding. I mean, we're at the point where we need to move from a letter of intent, a public speech, you know, a statement of interest. That's a statement to something more binding. And I think they're looking for us to kind of, look, we're kind of reaching our hand out or putting in our stake to say, yep, our piece is binding. So we are willing, these other parties are willing to commit to their piece that is binding. And I think I think the way we tried to structure the development agreement, that it still allows for, and per Alder Moore's amendment, that the council would give their consent to the management agreement. And I think that's where, as we've discussed this project, some of the questions have come up, would hopefully provide some comfort in terms of, you know, looking at some of the details, that there's still another set, more or less, of approvals that need to come through before this actually happens.
Okay, thank you for your response. I just feel really nervous about the level of risk associated with this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman Zima?
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Vaughn, the council has been waiting for the better part of 2 years for some kind of proposal or some sign from the people that we've told are interested in doing these projects. Now, to date, at least for the council, the silence has been deafening. There was a term sheet. I mean, I find it a little flimsy what you're saying, that they need a further commitment than the approval of a term sheet that kind of says quite a bit of stuff. Why haven't they given us any kind of proposal? Hey, forgive me if I'm trying to remember what the first date, I think it was on almost, at least a year and a half ago. We met in closed session about this, and, well, it was up in the air, and we've been waiting all this time for some kind of proposal of what they were asking for to do this project. Do you have any parameters of what they're asking for? Because, the reason I'm asking this is, I think most people, I don't know where it went from, oh, we only need one of these two to go forward. I think everybody thought, well, the bare minimum is we're gonna need both of those. And is there, to create any kind of TIF for the area? And would there be any TIF left for anything besides just doing this project? And, I bellered at the time about, well, the rest of Broadway down to 9th Street was not even in the district, was not even part of the TIF district. Now, that's been changed, and I'm pleased with that. But if you don't have a commitment to some development, there isn't any TIF to work with. And is there going to be anything left over after Anduzzi's and the indoor facility have made their proposals? Is there going to be anything else? I feel at this point, the city's made it kind of clear that they're willing to work with this project. Mr. Weary, myself, and at the time Ned Dorff, this is prior to your coming here, had put in a communication trying to figure out what kind of development we could do for that area. The administration at that time shot it down pretty hard. Now they're coming back, and I'm pleased about that, but the absence of any commitment from any major players here, and now we're going to go ahead if there's one that signs up? I think we have to be able to look at all the numbers. Why haven't we had a proposal yet?
Sure.
Are they interested?
Yes.
It's been, I think this December is gonna be like 2 years.
So we approved a term sheet last October, and
So that's a year ago.
correct. Part of what we've been working on, one of the contingencies or amendments to the term sheet was that this have no impact on the tax levy. And so I think that was important for us to note in terms of working on the financing piece of this, that how could we bring back a package that would not impact the tax levy. I also think during those discussions, a lot of questions were raised, as we talked about it, about, environmental work, parking, just a lot of questions that came up that, took some due diligence and took some time to uncover. But we felt with a pretty solid approval of that term sheet, look, it was worth both our time and the client's time to work on this. I think in what we've discussed, with the potential parties who are going to be involved, again, noted in the development agreement are some things that they have been looking for in terms of being able to provide parking, both parking right on the site itself, being able to provide parking very close by along that strip between the railroad and Broadway. It's providing waterfront amenities and access. It's providing a dock that can host transient boaters. a trail around and some other amenities with the waterfront that will enhance their, basically enhance their facility. And then it's also working on, the site prep and cleanup. And so we've been working with a number of partners, including the DNR, our consultant, who's done environmental work, and got to a spot where we feel that we can offer them, and I'm not going to use the word clean site because nothing is totally clean, but a buildable, developable site without any environmental impacts. And I think, again, what we've discussed with those parties is that we can provide the amenities that are contemplated in this agreement, and we can provide a quote-unquote pad on which for them to build their facility.
I guess that's somehow gone around the question, why aren't we meeting in closed session to hear what they're willing to offer, what they want to expect? I don't expect that it would have to be an open session here, but why don't we have some kind of exchange with these folks after almost 2 years and a year of a term sheet? I mean, I can't understand why this is being pushed ahead. It seems to me extremely premature. This is not a project that has the overwhelming support of the vast majority of Green Bay. Not too many people, not too big a percent of the people of Green Bay go to Bullfrogs games. Now, we're told there's going to be other events. To date, what they say, what are the events they're talking about? High school football practice and games?
Practices would not be counted as
and a soccer
events.
league, a soccer league? What soccer league? What soccer league are we talking about? Have you gone forward with any of that? Has that developed up at all?
Sure. So the soccer league, we received, I guess, a letter of intent or interest from the Premier Development League. It's a collegiate level soccer development, and they would be interested in doing a franchise in the city. I think that letter was circulated when we talked about the term sheet.
Okay, where is the closest competition for them? Is it all over the Midwest, or what is it?
Everyone's here, I mean.
Yeah, and
you
I
know
think,
that.
if we wanted to discuss in terms of events and things like that, one of the representatives from Big Top is here, and can discuss about some of the events and programming. I think that's a little bit into the management agreement portion of this, but they can provide some answers on that.
Well, I think the community would like us to work out a management agreement ahead of time, and would like to have some commitments from some people who are going to develop to create a TIF to do some of the things we want to do. Why haven't we got that?
They believe the ball is in our court, and they're looking for a commitment from us, as I mentioned, to spend additional resources to move forward, that they're not willing to continue. I think they've pretty clearly stated their intents. I mean, all of the parties involved, and are at a point where they're waiting for the city to make some sort of solidified binding commitment before they continue on this path. That to invest additional resources only to have it come back here and not go anywhere or get voted down.
Additional resources, they just got to tell us what they want to build and what they're requiring in TIF subsidy to do it.
Sure, and I think
and if they can't roughly do that and get to first base with us, it just strikes me as very odd. I mean, in my 42 years, we never had developers bashful about making a presentation and a request for things. This is the first time that we're sort of wiggling around.
No, I think we've stated in the development agreement what their request is for incentive, and that is to put in the parking amenities, the waterfront amenities, and provide them a site to build.
When you've put together this $9.5 million for the stadium, do you have a complete breakdown of where those costs are?
For the stadium itself, that
For
we
the
have worked.
whole thing to put it in. I'm not talking about the riverfront and this sort of thing. I'm talking about the stadium itself. What does it all include? What does the 9.5 million cover? I was speaking with Alderman Nenning a little earlier today, and he tells me that he asked for this information quite some time ago, and he's never got it. I mean, do we know exactly where we're gonna spend the money, other than in very large generalities?
Again, there's been some conceptual work done.
Have we done anything on our part of it to figure out exactly what all the costs are gonna be? I mean, we've talked about it in generalities, but do we have a pretty firm figure? And can we see it? Can we see the list of what it's gonna cost to do certain things? I mean, the community wants to be involved in reviewing this project. I mean, for us to stick our necks out for all of our districts, and we don't have this kind of transparency, looks bad. I would like to see it happen, but I'd like to see a little less risk on the part of the taxpayer and a little bit more commitment on the part of the people who think it can be a real going affair. For instance, what are the costs, just for three simple things here, that all have to do with the general infrastructure, but do we have the cost for the soil remediation? Do we have the cost for how we're gonna get across the railroad tracks? Do you have a commitment from the rail company yet regarding crossing the railroad tracks and being able to enter into the project? Have you done that yet?
We have been in contact with a few things. So as far as the railroad goes, we have made contact. We've had a few meetings with Canadian National in terms of our desire to provide an additional crossing near Clinton Street. At minimum, a ped bike crossing, biggest case, full street vehicular crossing. Again, you know, CN says, look, if we're gonna put in a new crossing, we'd like to see others closed. So we've asked them, okay, if we would not want to propose a new crossing here, what are some of the crossings that you would like to see closed? And they're working on that list, and I think once we see the list, is it worth the trade-off of providing an additional crossing at this area in order to alleviate primarily what would be, you know, ingress, egress, probably egress after a stadium event. As far as the environmental work, we've been working with our consultant to kind of come up with a remedial action plan for the site to get an indication of some costs, what they may be. As I've said, we've had some meetings with the DNR to see what might be possible in terms of, you know, we've done a phase one, we've done a phase two, what's there. Look, it's like most of our downtown historical riverfront sites, it's historic urban infill, you know, with some small amounts of petroleum, PAH, and other contaminants. But again, nothing that can't be overcome and can be used on site or built on top of. I think we too are, as I said, you know, kind of at the point of where we have some estimates of where these things come in, and I think that's what looking at the cost changes about the from initially $9 million project to 9.5 stadium, 1.5 for the amenities, is to account for these things like remediation and account for things that we've talked about, you know, the cost for parking and the cost for waterfront improvements. We're gonna have to go through.
Do you have a budget in each of those things itemized and what your approximate costs are on them?
I would, for the 1.5, about 1/3 to site prep and remediation, 1/3 to the waterfront improvements, and 1/3 to parking. I think before we go in, again, we're at the point of.
I'm talking about actual costs, sir.
We have not gone down the road of preparing docs to bid these out, because in terms of our public works department, or again, the operator looking at the specific cost of costing these, we feel based on general costing estimates, other projects, we feel comfortable with these numbers. But in terms of coming up with an actual budget to approve, we're at a point where we need some indication from our council to say whether or not we feel this is a project we should move forward with. And I think in terms of us going through and doing the design work and getting a spec sheet for what all these individual pieces are going to cost, I feel we provided a budget that conservatively estimates what these would cost in order to make the project work. I think we, as far as staff, the development team, the operator are concerned, have come up with a budget that we're comfortable with, and that we can go out and move forward with the project and won't have to come back asking for additional funds in the future.
Have you spelled it out? Have you put it down itemized? Have you itemized this? What costs are included? I'd like to see what all you've included to see if you've missed anything or if you overestimate something or underestimate. There's a lot of people in this community that have abilities. But I mean, you want the council to give more commitment than they've already given, which is a term sheet. But, you know, we're sitting here, we're in Never Land. The infrastructure costs, for instance, of the ingress and the egress for Reese Coal Company. Their road that goes into their site goes right under our bridge. I called there today to see if they had any costs or if they knew anything about it. They said they have never been contacted by the city of Green Bay any shape, form, or manner. And it just so happened that the CEO of it, who does not live in Green Bay and is away, happened to be here today. It was just a luck that I even was able to speak to him. And he said, well, he'd certainly like to know about what's going on. And I mean, can you really tell me, is it true that you have not contacted Sea Rice Coal Company about what they'd have to change in order for this to take place?
We have not contacted because we have not requested them to change anything at this point.
Well, so we're not going to ask them to change anything? I don't know. I read something here. Hang on a second. Coal trucks. The RDA shall make a good faith effort to execute an agreement with the property owners at 115 West Mason, 901, 10, and 11 South Broadway, and 1101 State Street to relocate the primary means of ingress and egress from West Mason Street to either South Broadway, 6th Street, or State Street. This is right in your proposal here.
Correct.
But you don't know anything about it. Why would you be talking about their ingress and egress if they weren't going to have to change it?
Because we have not committed to anything yet, and we're not going to reroute
well.
the traffic if we're not going to build a facility there.
You know, what's that going to cost here? Have you put any cost to this? You also got river barges. The RDA shall make a good faith effort to execute an agreement with the owners and barges to move their docking from West Mason to another suitable location. I've been involved in projects in my life, and I always want to know what my costs are and is the juice worth the squeeze in the end? And you make those determinations by getting information. So this important part here, you have not researched, you have not talked to the parties involved.
We have had conversations with the owners of the barges in order to be moving them to a different location.
What about the coal trucks?
We have not at this point.
Not at this point. Why would you talk to the barge people but not the coal people?
Okay. Right.
Right. What are you talking? I'm asking questions here.
He doesn't know. I'm sorry, we don't know. We don't have, all right, what else?
Well, I'm going through this. No, I have at least 8, 10 areas of questions.
We've invited you in here to talk about this, and you've never taken us up on that.
So yeah, where's the invitation?
Mary Hope called you. Don't call Mary. Don't call my secretary.
I don't
a liar.
meet lonely with people. But Mary Hopp has called me? Oh, really? Well, I don't remember it. Of course, I've only been alderman there for 40 years. I should be the last one to know, right? Okay.
It's your district. You were here when we bought the property.
Okay. You want to fight? I'm asking questions. Why are you interrupting me?
I think he's answering to the best of his ability. Look,
Well-
we have work
well,
to
I
do
tell
on
you-
this. We
yeah,
have a lot of work to do on this.
A lot of work to do on it. And I tell you.
We'll admit that.
Each and every part of this, I think, needs to be examined by our finance committee. The redevelopment authority was presented with this, last Tuesday? Was it Wednesday? I can't remember. The packet came to us on Saturday, and Mr. Vonk actually sent an email out at 9:44 last night, PM. And what's the Rush Act? You don't have anything lined up, and you want us to commit to stuff, and I think all of these paragraphs have to be looked at. I mean, Your Honor, for instance, just the revenues, operator lease. Operator shall commit to executing a management agreement with a term of no less than 20 years and an annual rent of no less than $225,000, which may be derived from operator revenue. Okay, well, we expect that. I mean, it's their operation. Naming rights. Well, normally the naming rights go to the people who build the facility, not the people who are going to rent it. Private contributions, sponsorships, grants, and any combination of the same other. These are all things that are bordering on things that the city could ask for. See, I really thought that in order to make this a community project, that we'd be asking some of the major people in our community to step up and make some contributions, and even the public, to make this thing a project that be part of the community, by the community, not just, well, we're signing up.
I just want to say, Alderman, some of that is addressed in the management agreement.
I feel each and every aspect of this 7 or 8 pages we have here needs to be reviewed by our finance department committee. And that all people here and the community, we got to have some transparency for the community where they get a chance for some input and some questions. I'm going to make a motion that this be referred to the Finance Committee for vetting, and I think staff needs to, and you, Your Honor, need to talk very seriously with these folks. If after almost 2 years, they can't even make any kind of proposal to us, that's just too uncomforting.
Okay, just
So
a couple
I'm-
things. There's some people here, I just did come in from Madison that wanted to talk about it, if you're interested, or before the referral.
We've heard
There's
from
just
the
two
top,
things.
the big top people before. Well, I think we kind of know what they're about.
Okay.
I
We
don't have
spent
any
a lot
problem
of
with
time
those
on
folks. I don't have any
financing.
problem with those folks at all.
Okay,
I have
Mike is
problems
here.
with, what are we doing?
Well, in closed session, we talked about an option that wasn't well received, so we went back, and this is where we're at today.
Well, it's not very far down the path. So that's my motion. I think this needs to be referred to Finance Committee. They need to thoroughly review it, and it should stay there until we have more of a proposal from the people who are saying that they're going to actively participate in that. I want to know what kind of TIF people are requiring. Is there going to be anything left over for any other development on the rest of Broadway? The reason I asked that the rest of Broadway be put in down to 9th Street, and you folks did it, was because I wanted to anticipate and have a chance for the rest of Broadway to make some improvements too. But you have to have, as they say, money to buy whiskey. And if we don't have the community stepping up to the plate, whether it be housing, whether it be the Anduzzi restaurant or any other facility or the music events, we need to look at that and say, hey, this is something worthwhile. And should we be looking to the community to make some contributions to this? The naming rights should belong to us. There should be some discussion about that.
But that would come in the management agreement.
Yeah, the management agreement. Then why don't we have this all together?
But
I mean, I would like the management agreement before you had this. But it's, I feel, hey, to make this successful, we need to say, what's it gonna cost to create the parking? Who gets the parking revenues? Do they, when I asked this question at Redevelopment Authority, Mr. Vonk said, well, and he wasn't succinct about what he said, but he at least generally said, well, I think they would get the parking revenues from the games when the Bullfrogs played, but then the city would get the revenues from the other events. And of course, what are we thinking we can get on that? Have we made some estimates? Do we have really things in place? I don't know if people are gonna pay for parking to come to a West High School football practice or a West High football game. Might be a community amenity that we use the stadium, or maybe one of the other high schools. If it's gonna be a community thing, well, and I think the community and the city can, it doesn't have to pay for itself 100%. It's an amenity to the community, and we can contribute something to it. But we need to get as good a proposal as we can, and we have to look to the sources of revenue that are available to us, not give them all away. I think they should give us the rent they think is what they would want to pay to use it, and anything else would be revenues for us to defray the cost of doing the
I
building.
just want to say that's in the management agreement, and Alderman Moore.
My motion is to send it there for review and for further development from our staff.
Alderman Zima, for point of information.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or just, could I ask Alderman Zima, really doesn't do us any good to send it to us if we don't have, I'd like to see the actual cost. Have staff put together numbers, so bring it so we can discuss it.
Well, if this is at the Finance Committee, you folks can ask till the cows come home, all you want. That's what I'm sending it there for. We need more transparency on this. We need a chance for the community over a period of time to see what this is all about.
Second.
It's pretty flimsy at
Right,
this point in
so
time.
there's a motion by Alderman Zima, second by Alderman Dwayne, to refer this item to the Finance Committee. So this is on referral, which takes precedent. Do you want to speak on referral? Alderman Scannell.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm against referral. Seems to me we're in a catch-22 here. We've got alders who will want more details that just aren't forthcoming, because even last year when we talked to these businesses in closed session and we asked them what they needed, they said they could not come up with anything until they invested money and time and energy in designs. How can they come up with a ballpark? How can they come up with anything until they do that? And they're not willing to do that with the state of the council as it is. They need a little bit more from us. I don't see this as crossing the goal line. All we're doing is moving the ball a little bit forward here. We're breaking this deadlock. We're saying these businesses need a little bit more from us, a commitment about, the parking and the water amenities, and we give them that, and they can start spending the money and taking the time to give us what we want. And in the meantime, we're not stuck with this. There's still plenty of time for this to be worked out. And if it doesn't work out, it hasn't cost us anything. All we're doing is breaking this gridlock and moving the ball forward a little bit. That's all we do. If the management agreement, which many of the things we were brought up here would be a part of, isn't to our satisfaction, if some of the developments, they think they got us over a barrel and we don't like what we got, well, we tell them no, they come back, or we look for, I think this is an opportunity for many people. And if it all washes out, then it just doesn't get done. We're not committed here. So I think just sending this to finance is just a waste of time. It's going to be a waste of money. We're going to have staff come up with all these detailed figures. And then if they're going to spend the time and money on that, we're going to spend the time and money on that. And then these other people are going to still say, well, no, we've got nothing for you until we know for sure you agree to give us the parking and the water amenities and everything else we got in this agreement here. So I think we need to give a little, and we're not giving away the whole store, and we're not committed to, we're not deadlocked here. We're moving the ball forward, we're breaking the gridlock, and I think it's time to move this ball forward. We've been fumbling around with this long enough. So I'm against referral, and no sense opening the floor, because it'd be just be on referral, correct? So that's all for me now.
Alderman Dwayne?
Yeah, thank you. I respect Alderman Scannell, but I disagree wholeheartedly. Even listening to staff more now this afternoon, they are not ready. They're not compared at all. We have asked plenty of times in closed session, multiple different things that we needed questions to. It seems like there's so much more work to do, and I couldn't be even more serious now that I'm gonna vote no against this project until we get these answers we need. I know, I haven't been here 40 years, but I'm going on 12. And I don't know how many times I went back to planning with my constituents, and not even my constituents from all your districts, over and over and over again, because our planning department, talking multiple times with Dr. Vonk, every time they come forward, they want a plan. And then they'll agree on that plan, and then they send them back home and tell them, well, they need this, and they need that, and you've got to show this, and you've got to show that. And they're paying their engineers and their architects more money time after time, and here you're trying to do something that's worth millions of dollars and we have nothing. We don't have the proper information, we don't have the real general cost. We know what they want to do, and we've all been trying to go down this road 2 or 3 times before in the past. But we have absolutely nothing as far as I'm concerned after listening to staff tonight.
Okay.
I just really believe what we do with everybody else and why we're not doing it with this. I don't think it's right.
Yeah.
We don't know what's all got to be done. And I'll tell you one thing, I can guarantee you Paul Newmeyer and the boys would anybody else would not ever pass this until they seen the documents, the architect, the engineering, the plans. We don't have any of it. Thank you.
Alderperson Dorf, on referral.
I would not be in favor of referral. I respect the work that RDA has done on this. I've attended almost every RDA meeting. I've come in for separate meetings. I believe that someone has to make that first step. And I don't feel that we're risking a lot by saying, yes, we will move forward with the development agreement. If I remember correctly, it was a 9-3 vote in favor of the term sheet. So it seemed as though council wanted to move forward with this. What are we really risking? We will have the opportunity to comment and to vote on the management agreement. I am definitely not in favor of referral. Thank you.
Thanks. So the motion, the second on the floor is, all right, Alderman Moore, hang on. Alderman Moore, go ahead.
Thanks, Your Honor. I would just point out, and I am against referral as well. I think we need to move this forward. Let's face it. As a whole, this council has not exactly been the easiest council for developers to stand in front of and present items to. And not just developers, but our own staff. We're a motley crew. I can see how hesitant people would be. I remember having a conversation with Rob Strong years ago, and developers would walk out of the city because they didn't want to stand before the council. And, we're not at that point. We've got people willing to work with us here, but they're looking for a commitment. I think our own staff needs a commitment from us as well. Alderman Zimma's got a list of 12 things that he wants answers to and staff to look into. But, if we get those answers and don't like them and shoot this thing down, well, how much staff time do we want to expend when there are so many other things that they could be working on at the same time? I think that approving the development agreement tonight doesn't, look, it shows a level of commitment that we want to keep moving this thing forward and that we're working toward an end goal. But quite honestly, there's a development on the south side of the city here. There was a medical center, a hotel, and a brewery that all came in, and They all built as a part of a district, but those were all individual, separate projects. And we're in the same position. We've got a stadium, we've got a concert venue, we've got a restaurant. They're separate projects, all part of one district. And we need to handle each project separately. And if approving one of these projects is what it's going to take to get the other two to come forward and show us what they're looking for, then I think we need to do it, because we can still say no. We still have that opportunity if we don't like the plan that's before us. So to delay this, kick it down the road a little bit further, bring it to finance, at that point, we'd probably end up referring it back to staff with a bunch of questions. Who knows what the discussion will become? We're talking months before we have any kind of answers. We're delaying this quite a bit. And all that happens in the meantime, we just had these hurricanes hit, forest fires like crazy, costs just continue to go up. And they're going to continue going up more and more. Look, this is a step forward. I think we need to take a step forward tonight. I'm against referral. I think we can take action on this, and there's still plenty of opportunity for the public. I would invite the developer to do like Walmart did. When they came down here, they did an open house at the Neville Museum, invited the public to come in and see renderings and ask questions. I think that that would be a great step by them to get the community involved. And I would ask them to do that. I would ask us not to refer this to the Finance Committee tonight, and let's just keep moving it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's use the board on this. This is on referral of item 2. So it's a tie vote.
Can we see it?
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, it's a tie vote, so I'm going to vote not to refer this. I think we have people here. Yep, hang on. I got to vote.
Who's got to vote yet?
Yeah, absolutely. You good?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Alderman Moore?
Thanks, Your Honor. I'd like to offer one more amendment, if the council would so take that up. We asked for a commitment from one of the two entities by the end of the year. I'd like to change that to both, that we have a development agreement from both entities by the end of the year.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so we have hang on, we're back to where we are. You have an amendment on the floor right now
Right.
that we amend this to approve a management agreement and secure two, I'm trying to look for the right words, to develop sites by 12/31.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Subject to approval.
Okay, so there's an amendment on the floor. Of course, I'll get to you in just a second. I just want to read this back. Regarding item 2, it's to approve the development agreement, contingent upon approval of a management agreement and securing 2 developable sites by 12/31.
Your Honor, I think it's important we make sure that its RDA will execute upon City Council's final approval on the amendment, on the management agreement. Council needs to have a final say on that.
Just to clarify, it's consent. You guys technically won't be a party to it, so you'll have consent authority under it. So it'll be final consent.
Consent for, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd just like to.
All right. Alderman Weary?
Thank
Alderman
you.
Weary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I supported this project last year, years ago, when Alder Dorf and Zima and I brought it up. There were a lot of details missing then. Obviously now, there's still puzzle pieces not in place, some details missing. I wouldn't have supported this tonight if we wouldn't have had final say in that management contract. Because a lot of my questions I sent to Director Vonk last week came back as, well, those have to be hammered out yet in the management agreement. Well, I'm not going to agree to something ahead of time that I have no idea what the end result's going to be. No offense to the RDA, but I'm glad that changed to come back to us. The other main item I was concerned with, and I didn't realize it actually till today when I got the term sheet from last year and compared it to this year's developer agreement. Last year in the term sheet, we agreed that the RDA would move forward on the project, which included 3 things. It had to include the multi-purpose event center, the full-service restaurant, and the indoor performance venue. That's what we passed as a term sheet, that we were gonna work on all 3 all at once. It was not bring back one, then another. And I didn't realize that until I got this from Director Vonk. So I'm glad the second amendment came in to tie these all together, because they are tied together. It's not just a freestanding project. Now, I did finally get to talk to the school district, and I'm glad to hear, they are in full support of the project. West High School is, they were it was kind of a gray area there for a while, but they are excited about it. So are the coaches and the booster club. So that part's cleared up. This inches the project forward. It in no way gives it final blessing, obviously. You mentioned it yourself, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot that has to happen here yet. And I'm hoping that some of the rumblings behind the scenes of other projects that could be major projects because of this, I hope they step forward and say publicly what they're gonna do, and they're committed to it, because that would make this a lot easier. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Alderman Dwayne?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Alderman Moore, I appreciate the amendment you brought forward. I get a different view. I've gotten quite a few calls from parents from West High stating that, why would we move to that stadium? And I'd like to see them go there too, because it's part of the package. But they had said, why would we go there? Our kids go to West. We got a stadium. Why would we go somewhere else? What does that bring? It's not a home field advantage for them anymore. Those are the comments I heard. And I heard from one of the coaches that wasn't too keen on it either. But I've talked to many people in my district. And one thing I promised them is I want to see the numbers. I was there when Alderman Worry and Zima put this in. I was with them. I tried to get it going with them. I like the Bullfrogs. I bring my family there all the time. It has nothing to do with that. I want to see the proper numbers. I made a commitment to my district in the city of Green Bay that, I'm going to be making sure that I see what's in front of us before I vote it up or down. I'm not saying anything bad with the project. I like the project. It just is going to go through, but that is the time when I see the numbers and I see exactly what's going on and who's on board, then I can vote for it. But at this time, tonight, I won't vote for it because I don't have those answers. But I just want everybody to know that's the reason. My district, the people I talk to, and, they want me to do my homework. And so until I see it, then, I may change my mind. But up until then, I'm going to vote no on this. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. So the amendment on the floor is to approve the amendment we're talking about, and then we'll, is to add approval of the management agreement. What's the proper wording?
Okay, so there's 2 places we can deal with it in 2 occasions. The first, for the outdoor event center, it's on page 5BB. The very top one, outdoor event center, the last sentence is RDA and/or city shall enter a separate management agreement. There we would just say the RDA shall enter into a separate management agreement consented to by the city with a third-party operator in order to provide a framework.
What page is that?
It's 5BB.
All right. Okay, and the second one is 5KK.
Correct.
All right, did you get the amendment and 5B be the,
Very top, number 1.
very top is,
That last sentence.
all right,
So it would read, the city shall enter into a separate management agreement with a third-party operator, which shall be consented to by the city, in order to provide a framework within which the stadium may be operated and managed.
All right, let's just vote on that one first, and then we'll go to KK. So that's the amendment on 5BB.
Correct.
Yeah. Discussion on that amendment? All in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. The ayes have that. And then on page 5KK, other agreements, RDA shall have entered into a binding agreement for construction of, and we take out either to both, and obviously indoor performance venue to an and. It's actually page 11 of 23, 5KK, the top, it's item B, is in boy, other agreements. And the RDA shall have entered into a binding agreement for construction of, it used to say either, that will be amended to both. The indoor performance venue, and then it had or, and that obviously would change to and, a year-round full-service restaurant. By the end of the year.
Those would also be subject to approval of the council or just the RDA?
That's fine.
We can make clear that they come here.
Could you speak up, please?
We'll make it clear they come here.
So each of the agreements
Those two agreements will come back here by the end of the year.
says,
We would just add at the very end, which
Doesn't
shall be
say that.
consented to by the city.
where does it say that?
We can add that in right now. Yeah, we're adding it as part of the amendment.
The previous amendment covers this?
No, we're adding that language in again. So at the very end of that sentence, you would just add, which shall be consented to by the city.
Who made that amendment?
I'm proposing that as language you could choose to include.
All right, so move.
Your Honor, before, I mean, the city could mean the mayor and the staff. I want the city council.
Okay, city council.
City council is much different than the city.
Okay, so that's the amendment, in both and in which shall be consented to by the city council. And that was made by you, Alderman Zima? Now, who made that amendment? Alderman Moore? Do we have a second on that amendment? Seconded by Alderman Zima. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion to. It's a motion by Alderman Moore, seconded by Alderman Scannell to approve this as amended. Alderman Weary?
Mr. Mayor, since we'll possibly be moving forward on, hammering out that management agreement, I just wanted to highlight a few things. I know staff, you've already heard them. Hopefully, Big Top will hear it as well. West High School, the concessions, I keep bringing up, the gate proceeds and the concessions. I want to see that in there, that they're going to come out equal or better than they would if they were at West. The pricing of the Bullfrogs game, obviously, right now, it's very family friendly. I'd like to see something in that management agreement that keeps it that way, that, they just can't, prices just start inflating and it becomes something that it isn't now. That's important. I think the naming rights issue has to be back on the table. That's one thing I did hear a lot from people. However we have to do it, that has to be back on the table. And there's some other things, I gave those to Director. The community presentation that Alderman Moore brought up, I think similar to what Walmart did, is an excellent idea. Bring your renderings, bring your concept, get the input from the public. Maybe they have some things that we didn't even think of, and hear from them. It's gonna be their ballpark. Thanks.
All right, thank you. You good? Alderman Zima?
Thank you, Your Honor. So we passed last amendment already, right? Was that voice vote?
Right, and the one before that. So the motion on the floor right now is to adopt this as amended.
Okay, thank you. To follow up on Alderman Weary's concerned about the naming rights. That was the next thing I was going to talk about, because on page 5FF, under subparagraph C, subparagraph 1, the operator lease. I'm sort of wondering why this paragraph is actually even here. If it's going to be part of the management agreement? In other words, is everything in C1 on 5FF, is that all for consideration in the management agreement?
That is part of the management agreement.
I guess, why is it here then? Because I think that's something, all of these things here, we have to work out and decide what goes to the operator and what's gonna go to the city and what proportions.
Dr. Vonk, you want to comment on,
The reason it's stated here is in the development agreement, it talks about project costs, what we're building, and then it talks about project revenues and how we're paying for it. And it contemplates different sources of revenues. In order for us to pay back the debt service on our project grant, we need money from the operator lease and from the TID district in order to pay that back. So the reason it's stated in here is so that we have knowledge of what that amount will be in terms of the lease in order to pay back the debt service.
yep,
I would like to make a motion to refer item C1 to the deliberations of the management agreement, so that there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That'd be my motion.
all right. So we have a motion by Alderman Zima, second by Alderman Weary, to refer or make item C1 is what? What'd you say?
Refer it to the deliberations of the management agreement.
Yeah. And that is, okay. Alderman Moore, you want to speak on that?
Thanks, Your Honor. So I was referring, there should still be some language in here that's offsetting the cost, because the point of this is that we're doing everything we can to keep this from affecting the general levy or pulling from any other services. We might accomplish the same thing by just striking all of the language after the dollar amount of $225,000, because this is the RDA intends to pay the debt service on the grant from the following sources. If it's a 20-year lease at $225,000, I don't think it should really matter to the RDA where the $225,000 is coming from, as long as the leasing is paying it. So, which may be derived from operator revenue, naming rights, private contributions, all that could really be struck, because that's all gonna be taken up in the management agreement anyway. So, I mean, we could just refer this and take it there and just pull it out of here altogether, or we could just take that language out and take that language up. I guess either way really works, but.
I think if you want to put a period after 20 years, so that we, we're executing a management agreement, term no less than 20 years, the whole rest of it, the price is yet to be determined. Because the way I heard it, this $225,000 includes, they could get naming rights equal to all of that and pay nothing. So I think this whole discussion of naming rights has to be up for at least a discussion with the managers that are going to run the facility. Maybe dividing them, maybe all one way, all another way. It has to be part, I mean, how can you approve this with all this stuck in here now? You were just told that it's no problem. What's the hesitation? Move it over.
I'm fine with that. I'll second it. I'll second it if that's what we wanna, if that's how we wanna handle it. I'm fine with that.
I'm going to go with
This thing would be
period
done.
after 20 years and refer the rest of it, if you feel that's important.
I think as part of the development agreement, it is important because we are showing where we're offsetting the costs. And I think that offsetting the costs does need to be a part of this, so, so,
All right, so let's just,
so,
a lease of no less than 20 years, period, and then the rest of that paragraph gets referred to part of the management agreement. So that's the motion in the second.
yep.
All right.
fine.
All in favor of that, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, a proper motion would be to adopt this as amended
So moved.
by
Second.
Alderman Moore, second by Alderman Scannell. Alderman Zima.
Thank you, Your Honor. I had asked that this be referred, so all these things could have been talked about somewhere else. But number 3 under revenues, it says the city's obligation to make debt service payments on the project grant may be considered a general obligation of the city, and the full faith and credit of the taxing powers of the city may be pledged to the payment of such amounts. So it may not be?
That's in everything we do. I mean, if we're using tax increment financing, yeah, I mean, the city, I mean, that's just boilerplate
Well,
language.
You know, this is sort of boilerplate language. When you borrow money, it's a language, it's a general obligation bond. It says,
There's
that-
no levy dollars in this, though. You guys were pretty clear on that, so, but
there's no levy dollars, then why is this here? Then we can strike number 3.
No, because if we're borrowing money and the bank is here, and it's financed through, the lease as well as, some new development, some new tax increment financing that we're going to receive from new development,
The ones that we don't have yet.
the ones we haven't had in 40 years, yes, and if that TIF doesn't work, I mean, the city, we're on the hook for every TIF, every community's on the hook for it. I mean, as Alderman Weary said,
Well,
we feel like there's
Then, Your Honor, we
strong
can't double
development.
talk to the public.
We're not.
You can't sing, there's gonna be nothing on the levy of the city of Green Bay. That's what you said here a little earlier. Well, if there isn't, then why is this language here? Because it says, it may be.
Everything
on the
may be, right? All the TIF things may be.
Everything may be.
The
That's-
the KI Convention Center may be. We're hoping,
I
room
think
tax,
I think
but-
almost all of it's gonna be on the taxpayers' back. That's what I think.
Yeah,
At least half.
You keep saying you think there should be city dollars in here. I mean, that would be an awesome amendment.
Well, we could go back and talk about that. But I really, we struck the last thing. So, hey, the rent should be whatever they're willing to pay. The naming rights should belong to us to
We're
defray
gonna work
this.
that all out in that agreement, guy.
Well, I'm just pointing out here, this is just like the boilerplate on every general obligation bond.
Right.
It says the city taxpayer's on the hook, lock, stock, and barrel, for whatever shortfall there is in this agreement.
Right. That's,
So,
where,
hey,
with Schreiber, it is, yes, the city pledges their good faith. Now, we have other,
all right, well, let's not say that none of it's gonna be on the levy,
it's,
because that's
our
what you're
plan,
saying.
I'm saying our plan is not to have any of this on the levy.
Plan. You haven't
plan
brought
with
forth-
KI.
You haven't brought us forward the simplest proposal of showing any TIF revenue.
Point of order, there's no proof, speculating here, there's no proof that this is.
I'm not
gonna be-
speculating.
There's no proof it's not gonna be on.
Mayor, you gotta recognize point of order.
Alderman Scannell,
What's the point of order?
that it's not relevant.
It's not relevant.
Not relevant?
No.
Who are you to decide what's relevant and not?
It's boilerplate. Okay,
We can't decide this.
Yep.
It's impossible to make a decision on that.
right. So there's a motion and a second on the floor to adopt this as amended. Use the board on this. Use the board on this, please.
I'm not done, I have another amendment.
What are we voting on?
You don't get to shove everything through. page 5BB, which is D1. It says here that construction of a multi-purpose, multi-seasonal outdoor event center shall include approximately 2,500 fixed seats, an artificial turf field, restrooms, concessions, hospitality areas, dugouts, scoreboard, lighting, walkways, related improvements, and shall be capable of holding approximately 4,000 persons for sporting events and 8,000 persons for concerts, festivals, and community events. Now, 8,000 people is a lot of people. What is our planning department's normal requirement for a restaurant, a tavern, any type of facility? How many parking stalls do you have to provide if you're expecting 8,000 people?
Like the farmer's market?
The farmer's market, people come and go.
You think they're gonna sleep over at the concert?
They're all there at once. I guess I want to know, where's the part of this thing that says that the parking, I mean, I appreciate that it seems that they're talking about, they started out with they're going to have 128 parking stalls. That moved up to a couple hundred, now it's up to 400. Does 400 accommodate 8,000 people? I understand some people can walk there. But that's not more than 500 to 1,000 people maximum. Where does the parking come from? The silence is deafening.
No, it's not. I mean, you know the answer to all these. I just,
What is the answer?
the answer is, there's shuttle service we talked about with the Tavern League. You were there for that meeting. There's people who will park in public parking. When they have 3 or 4 concerts a year, we're gonna accommodate that, and they're responsible for a parking plan.
How many parking stalls do you need for 8,000 people?
3,187.
And you think that's all available there?
Not there, no. I said that we talked to
So
people
you're
about.
figuring about 3.5 people per car? Is that what you're talking about?
I have no idea. How many?
You have no idea, yeah, I've heard that before.
I don't know if there's 3 people per car. Alderman, Dr. Vonk, then let's move in here.
Generally for places of assembly, you need 1 parking spot for every 4 seats. In the downtown area, we generally have our parking requirements, so you need 1 for every 8 seats.
1 for every one?
8 seats. So here, providing 400 spots on site, I think, again, management agreement would contemplate having a parking plan available to provide additional parking within a certain radius of the stadium. Again, I think what we're trying to do here is enhancing the neighborhood, that people are going to bars, restaurants before, after the game. They're walking, they're living in the neighborhood. Look, we've thoroughly discussed this with our planning staff and development team, and are comfortable with this proposal as presented.
I don't know. I know we talked about it at one meeting one time. See, none of this is vetted by the council, except here. We get this thing Saturday afternoon, and when we ask questions about it, well, it's irritating. It's irritating to have questions. That's why it needs to be vetted at a committee level.
All right, anything else?
These things need to be talked about. Well,
All right, so the motion and second on the floor is to adopt this as amended. Yep, I want to vote. Use the board. Okay, and that passes by a vote of 9-3. I think I want to take a 5-minute break and thank these people for coming.
subject.
We're going to take a 5-minute break.
he mislinked it because he would never go. That's one of the.
All right, let's. Chris, we're good. So we're now on to the report of the Finance Committee.
So moved.
There's a motion by Alderman Nicholson, second by Alderman Scannell to approve the report of the Finance Committee, and that was for the meeting held on October 10th. Are there any items in this report you wish to handle separately? Hearing none, all in favor of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. The ayes have it, and the Finance report's been approved.
Report of the Improvement and Service Committee.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Randy Scannell, second by Alderman Joe Moore, to approve the report of the Improvement and Service Committee, and that was for the meeting held on October 11th. Are there any items in this report you wish to handle separately? Seeing no lights, all in favor of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. That report's been approved.
Report of the Personnel Committee meeting held September 26th, item 3, held at last council meeting.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Tom Dwayne, second by Alderman Randy Scannell to approve the report held on September 26th. Alderman Moore?
Thanks, Your Honor. At the personnel meeting that followed, we did approve a request of changing the procedure from the council to handle committee reports using a consent agenda. To hopefully that would maybe shorten some time of some of these meetings. But I still think returning to 2 committee meetings, leaving them on the schedule for now is the right way to go. It's very easy to cancel a meeting. It's very hard to schedule one. So I'd like to see us approve this tonight as it is. And during those months, we can obviously take those months as they come up on a case-by-case basis.
All right, so that, Alderman Slotnick?
Mayor, I just want to say I agree with Alderman Moore. We can always cancel meetings if necessary, and frankly, I don't think the other change, the consent agenda, is going to make that much difference in the length of the meetings.
I'm going to take this report first, the meeting one, and then we'll take up the second one. So,
So I support passing this one.
okay. So we have a motion and second to pass the meeting held on Tuesday, September 26th, item 8. Alderman Scannell?
Yeah. Just a quick, I'm going to support this, but I would like to note that we've had months where we had 2 meetings and we went into the wee hours. So I don't know that this necessarily solves anything either, but I'm going to support it, but I'm not sure what our answers are for that, staying on time, so, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and second to approve this report. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay.
Report of the Personnel Committee.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Moore, to approve the report of the Personnel Committee, page 9, held on Tuesday, October 10th. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately? One. Hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. What are your wishes regarding item 1?
Second?
Motion to approve by Alderman Moore, seconded by Alderman Scannell. Alderman Slotnick, Alderman Scannell.
Yes, sir, I'd like to refer this to staff. We're going to a new software for our minutes and stuff, and they would like to test out and see how this would work with that, so I'd like to give this to staff.
All right, so there's a motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Nicholson to refer this item. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. That report's been approved.
Report of the Protection and Welfare Committee.
There's a motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Bill Galvin to approve the report of the Protection and Welfare Committee report for the meeting held on Monday, October 9th. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately? Number 7. Hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Everything's been approved with the exception of item 7. What are your wishes regarding item 7? Motion to approve by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Galvin. Alderman Zima.
Thank you, Ron. I don't know how many of the council caught this one or not, but this is a radical change in the city of Green Bay to allow everyone now to have 3 dogs without having to ask permission for the 3rd dog. We were told at committee that, well, the staff can approve a 3rd dog without our approval. I guess I'd ask a question, is that really true? Because I was unaware of us ever making any change to the ordinance.
When I looked at the ordinance, I didn't see anything that referred it to, for an administrative one. However, I understand that is the process they've been operating under. So if there was a verbal designation of authority, that's entirely possible.
Well, I don't know. Historically, when people wanted a 3rd dog, they all came before the committee, and some of them were very routine, that were approved by the staff, and the neighbors didn't care. But that's separate from this. But I think I'll put in a communication to clarify that, what I just spoke of, because I think we want people to have to come through the committees, because it's what we've always done, and it's, I thought, worked out pretty well. There have been less of them coming before our committee. But allowing 3 dogs, now if you got 3 Rottweilers, it's okay, it's A-okay. They can't, the staff can't even say a word about it, and I think we're just asking for more trouble. So I'm requesting that the council vote no on this.
Right. So the motion on the floor, item 7, is to refer this to staff. Alderperson Dorf. I think it was. Yeah, it has. It has. It was actually Alderman Slotnick. Alderperson Dorf?
Okay, thank you. So I brought this forward based on a number of things. First of all, because constituents had asked me to bring this forward, so I'm doing it for that reason. Also, I had the personal experience of having my parents pass away and having promised them that I would care for their dog. And we indeed had 2 dogs already. So I needed to go through that process. It was 8 weeks, and it was a very difficult 8 weeks. There was the stress of my parents passing very close to each other, and then the stress of not knowing, would I be able to keep that promise to my parents? It all worked out in the end, but I don't know why we would want to put our citizens to that stress. I've done some research. The city of Appleton nearby, about the same size, 3 dogs are permitted. The city of Madison, a little larger than us, unlimited, but they all need to be licensed and they have to have their shots. They need to be properly cared for. I also asked Officer Mavis to be here tonight because I think she has some very pertinent information about the number of requests she gets and the lack of problem with 3 dogs in a household as opposed to 7 or 8 dogs, which there is a problem with those. So I wonder if we could ask Officer Mavis to give us some insight on how she's handled this the last 2 years.
Yes. Officer? Do you want to comment on the process?
I'm new to this
Yep,
year,
I know, I
so
get that.
thanks for bearing with me.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Alderperson Dorf had asked you just to comment on the process of when 3 dogs are requested or found in the city, how you handle that?
Sure. So right now, the city ordinance allows 2 dogs and 3 cats as the limit. I have several requests, usually weekly. This week alone, I've gotten 2. People come forward and they say, oftentimes, like Alderperson Dorf said, they currently have 2 dogs. Maybe one dog is 15 years old, and now they're on a waiting list with a rescue that they've been on a list for over a couple of years, and now an eligible dog has come through. Now their one dog is getting close in age, and they have an opportunity with a rescue to take on another dog. So the likelihood of maybe that other dog passing who's a senior dog, they want that exception, and they might not need it for maybe more than a year or 2. Other times, family members often have two dogs. A family member passes away, and now they have this dog who's maybe 14 years old. Rather than give it up to a rescue or an animal shelter where they're not familiar, the chances or the likelihood of it getting readopted at that age and possible health issues that come with a senior-aged pet, oftentimes the animal would become euthanized. Or end up in a not so good home with, sometimes not familiar people, and that creates more stress for the animal and obviously the family because they've had to give up a loved one's pet rather than take it into their own home. There's things I consider. Right now, if people want a permit, it comes through my division within the police department. They're required to list what type of breed of dogs they have, their ages, that they all have current dog or cat licenses, and they have to write a statement to me of why they want to be exempt from the 2-dog or 3-cat ordinance, obviously. I take that into consideration. They have to send all this information back to me. I then go door to door. I give them a month to send in that permit. You have a month to do so, or otherwise I end up citing you. So then after the permit's received, I then go door to door, usually addresses across the street, next door, and directly behind the address. Those that might be affected maybe with a barking dog complaint, accumulation of animal feces where odor might be an issue, and that's the things that I address, or running at large, that kind of thing. And those residents have 10 days to send back complaints. They can be anonymous, and then I take that into consideration. Are concerns received? Is there concerns received and things I need to address to approve the permit or deny the permit? Now, if I deny the permit, then it goes before city council for them to make the decision. Right now, I don't have issues with people having a few dogs. To me, I'm in favor of the 3-dog ordinance. I have no issues with that. Right now, my biggest issue is I have people in the city that have 7, 8 dogs, double the number of what they should. They're not vaccinated. I had a bat test positive for rabies last week. That's a concern. And I have citizens that are not compliant with the city ordinances. And I think what a lot of people are forgetting is some people, they choose to have pets over children. I'm not going to make that decision for them. I feel that should be made on the household. However, if someone's household becomes unruly, whether it's animals running at large, animals not in control with a 5 feet of right-of-way, accumulation of animal feces, there are ordinances in place for me to already address those issues firsthand.
Okay. A couple questions for you from some of the aldermen.
Sure.
Alderman Moore?
Thanks, Officer Mavis. Is the procedure that you take when there is a third dog or more, is that a procedure that's in our ordinance, city policy, or is that just kind of a rogue procedure that has just kind of been adapted over time?
So I took over for Officer Sharon Henson in October of last year, and the permits would go through city council previously. She advised me at that point that they did not need to go through city council anymore and that she was able to make the decision. Now, if she would deny a permit, it could then go before city council for a discussion on it.
I don't know that that's the policy, but it sounds like a good one that's in place. I mean, if it's denied and it comes before us, then a homeowner is going to, or a pet owner, they're going to come before us with these case-by-case situations where, a parent died and they've taken a pet on. I mean, to come before protection and welfare, I mean, at least in this situation, then these folks have maybe talked to their neighbors, got the dogs licensed, and do everything they need to do before they come before protection and welfare and say, hey, this is my situation, and, this is where we're at. Look, I didn't get a single call in this last week about the event center, not a single one. But I got 6 calls about this, all from people adamantly opposed. And look, I mean, I'm in a neighborhood that's got a lot of transient population. I've got a lot of upper, lower duplexes and homes that are chopped into 3-4 units with pets in each. Officer Mavis is in my district quite a bit, so I mean, I know that she understands this. I don't think that my district is conducive to allowing 3 pets per household. I mean, are you talking a household as an individual unit? If I've got a 4-unit or a 5-unit house on a single lot, I could have 15 dogs on that. I mean, I'm not supportive of that. I agree with Alderman Zim on this. I think that the policy we're using right now works, and I think we should just keep it in place. Thank you.
Alderman Slack, do you have a question for the officer? Do you, Alderman Zima? All right. Alderman Zima?
Officer Mavis, Alderman Dorff talked about the situation, the heartbreaking situation that occurs from time to time. But right now, your practice is that when you review these, you approve them, correct?
I either approve or deny them, yes.
But in those type of cases, it's usually not a problem, correct?
Usually it's not a problem. I do have issues where I deliver a permit to someone who has sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dogs, and I require them, you have 1 month to complete the permit. If I do not get the permit back, that's when I go out and cite. I have not seized, I correct that. I have seized several dogs in deplorable conditions, and the issues that I've come into play are usually my cooperative residents within the city come forward and request to be exempt from this. It's the people that are trying to do, more or less breeding operations in their basements. Just last week, I seized 5 dogs in a basement, deplorable conditions. None of them are vaccinated. And these are what I stumble across, obviously, the people who are not compliant at all. I wouldn't even consider a permit for someone like that. I immediately seize the dogs, their police investigation at that point.
Well, Officer Mavis, there isn't anybody in this room that's going to disagree with that. But I really don't think we should be confusing the problem of people that have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dogs with people that have 2. If they want more than that, they used to have to come to the council. I think that's still how it reads. But as a practice, the officers have been making the judgments on those, so if that's the way we're practicing, and those exceptions, those minor exceptions are going to be approved. But I really think that to just suddenly now it moves up, you got 3, no matter what, you can have any situation you want, and you only had to get permission when there's more than 3 now. I think it's totally wrong. I mean, we've learned here in the last few months that dog dirt is equal to rat food. And of course, the more dog dirt, the more rat food. Every spring, we have lots of problems, and we have lots of problems even when it's not spring, about dog dirt and all these things. Now, of course, every individual operates differently. I mean, I had a tenant once that had 2 dogs, 3 cats, and about 60 birds. And her property was immaculate. When she left, I didn't have to lift a paintbrush. And then there's other people that have 1 cat, and I've had to tear up the whole carpet and cut out the floor to take care of problems. So it's all about the individual, but I don't know why we're mixing this conversation about people that have absurd number of dogs with of whether we're going to change it from 2 to 3. I really think 2, and seems that they're making the exceptions that they think are important, should stay in place.
Thank you.
It's going to 3, without question, that can become problematic. Sometimes 2 are problematic if they're very large, aggressive dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of lights on this one. Alderman Scannell.
Thank you, Your Honor. I supported this at committee, but I had reservations. I was on the fence, knowing that I would have a chance, if I changed my mind, to reverse my decision. But since that time, I believe that this is a fine way to go. I think this has come forward because we get hundreds of permits a year, and it takes a lot of time. I'd rather have officers maybe out there patrolling on picked up feces, which she'd have more time for if she didn't have to go through all these permits, which she would have to do even if they went to council, because we'd want her to check out all the information we would need to make our decision. So, and it's not like we're really jumping out far on a limb here. I mean, there are other communities that have 3 dogs. I think one, is it Appleton or Madison, doesn't even have any limit. And those, certainly theoretically, a unit could have 12 to 15 dogs. I believe theoretically that is probably gonna never happen, and if it does and it's a problem, we have laws on the books that would deal with whatever the problem would be. So I've gone off the fence, and I support this wholeheartedly now.
Right,
Thank you.
Thanks. Alderman Slotnick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In 5 years on the council, I've learned one thing, and that is that I cannot predict what items the press is going to take an interest in. And so this one made the TV, so all the constituents saw it, and the phones lit up today. I had the same experience as Alderman Moore had. And it was uniform that the callers did not want to change in the ordinance, did not see a reason for this, and felt like this was a solution in search of a problem. And as Alderman Moore pointed out, our system right now works fine. I see no reason for change, so I won't support it.
All right, thank you. Turn off your light, Tom. No, hang on, take them in order.
I thought you should turn your light off.
No, talking to Alderman Slotnick. All right, Alderman Nenny?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to ask how many exceptions are on the books right now that have been approved? How many households are currently allowed to have 3 dogs?
Do you know, officer? I mean, I know you get.
I don't have the
100
answer for you
requests.
on that. I have a stack about this, and in 3 different filing cabinets. And this started from when Officer Henson was here. She did a lot of paper trail. I'm trying to move more electronic, so we get things scanned in a little bit more efficiently. So we have them dating back. Some of them, the animals might not even still be with us. So to have a number, I'm not rightly sure.
Okay.
But it's hundreds.
I have, yes, it's quite a few.
Okay, well, I just want to give you my thoughts on this. You know, I looked at our ordinance today, and it actually allows 2 dogs, 3 cats, and 8 birds per lot. Now, whether the numbers are right or wrong, I don't think is anything that's cast in stone here. I think it basically depends on how well people take care of their animals. You know, I have a constituent lives down the block from me that walks his 3 little dogs every day, and I don't know if he has approval or if he doesn't, but his dogs haven't caused any problem. He picks up after them, he gets them their shots. They don't attack neighbors or anything. So I really think, you know, when you look at it, we allow a lot of animals right now per lot. And I really think that it's a case where when there are problems, we can address those problems. If someone isn't picking up after their dogs or cats, if someone isn't restraining them so they don't attack neighbors, if someone isn't controlling the barking, those are all things that we're allowed to control under the ordinance. And I don't know why we allow 3 cats and only 2 dogs. I don't know. I think you have to look at what is reasonable here, and I'm comfortable if we make this change and deal with the problems when they occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Tom Duane?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. I talked to Officer Muse about this, and she knows in my district, just about every household's got a dog, 2 dogs. I probably have 4 people that take dogs in all the time. Every time I see her walk by, she's got 2 different kind of dogs. Until usually they're really too old for the people to take care of them, or they're just waiting for a home for the dog. But in any case, hearing that Officer Meaves is now able to give that person a permit, before it always came to the protection and welfare every time. And now hearing that she's allowed to do this on the basis that she deems it's okay, I don't think we need to change anything, because is there a cost for permits?
They're free. They
They're
also
free, so-
include exotics.
Yeah, so we're not hurting anybody, but we're not really damaging the fact, because we're using your expertise anyway, and you don't only if you deny them do they come forward to us. So I don't think you need to make changes, because you can go to the front door, look at the situation, and tell them to follow permit and do your duty anyway, correct?
Yes.
So I think I'd rather keep it that way, because this way you're seeing what's going on out there. You know, because I have no problem with a person that takes responsibility to have 3 dogs. I really don't, but that's just my opinion. Thanks.
Alderman Stoyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think one of the concerns I have is, like Alder Zimmer brought up, was rats. We've had I've been at 9 different meetings over the last several weeks on the rat issue. So that is a big concern for me. There are folks that are good pet owners and they do clean up, and there's others that don't. And it always seems like the people that don't do the job make it tough for everybody else. Let me ask you, officer, if this would be, if they already have several dogs, I mean, let's say if they have 3 or 4 dogs, things would be grandfathered in, correct? If they already had these animals?
Yes.
Yes. She said yes.
If they have 3 dogs, they wouldn't, that permit is already on file.
Right. I mean, my feeling is that to keep it the way it is, but if somebody has a request that they could come before P&W, I have no problem with that, but now you're saying that you can give these out, so that could be something that can be dealt with at P&W, but I have no problem. I would just as soon keep it at 2, so, thank you.
Can I just
Yes.
make a comment?
Yes.
I know you brought up the rat issue that we have, and my phone rings off the hook. I advise people I'm not a pest control person, I'm a humane officer. But I feel that the greater issue that's contributing to the rat issue in town, and I get daily calls on it, are the feral cats that run. I have an issue where there's 30 of them and people leaving pans of food out. These are unvaccinated animals, and I feel like that's where a rat issue is coming from.
Well, I know
Mainly.
There's other issues that, multiple bird feeders and then everything else.
Right.
There's a lot of different
On the
issues with
dogs.
that, so. I don't know. I'm still not fully comfortable with going to 3. Thank you.
All right, Alderperson Dorff?
Thank you. I have a question for Officer Mavis. So there are hypothetical problems that these could happen. Are there a lot of problems with people that have 3 dogs? Have you had to address problems with people that have 3 dogs?
The problems that I have to address are when I end up getting information where people already have more than 3 dogs. They're running breeding operations in basements. And obviously the good citizens who are requesting to have maybe 3 or 4 dogs, some of them are teacup dogs, maybe they're 5-10 pounds. They don't go outside. They go to the bathroom on pee pads. They just are tiny house dogs. Other ones, I've approved were for 3 St. Bernards. And the owner has 6-7 foot fence up, and they're very responsible, walked 3 at a time, no issues. It's the residents that I get complained on who already do not follow having an animal vaccinated, having a city license, running loose. Those are things that I already address, and I have animal ordinances in place, and I do cite for those violations. I stay very busy, and to me, it's important because the residents come forward and they have these issues, and I want to address those issues. And if there's a problem, you know what, my way is, you get a written from me, a written warning, and then you get a citation. You get a chance to correct the problem. And if we have an issue, you bet it's a citation. And if it's an issue, then I will address it with one of the violations that we have with our city ordinances as far as animal codes go.
If you were not spending the many hours a week you are spending on the permits, would you be able to find other things to do?
I would. I currently manage the chicken licenses, the bee licenses, the cat and dog licenses, the exotic licenses. So I stay very busy on top of the call volume that comes in. I also get complaints from the Bay Area Humane Society and local vet clinics to address, emails and voicemails. So I stay very busy. I don't have enough time in my day to get done what I need to get done usually.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Alderman Scannell.
Real quick, Your Honor, yep. I too did get a few calls on this, and they were against changing the law, but the reason for it is this. We get hundreds of permits a year. It takes lots of hours for Officer Mavis to investigate these. Is that the best use of her time? I don't think so. I think I'd rather have her focusing on problems than on this. And if someone has 3 Rottweilers, and they're under control, and they pick up after them, and they take care of them, what's the problem? I think we're focusing on the wrong thing, and that's, is this the best use of Officer Mavis's time? And I don't think it is, given that nature of, I mean, if it was a few, it wouldn't be a big deal, but we're talking hundreds, and we're talking lots of man-hours to investigate. I think we could, she could better use her time with something else. Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to refer this item to draft an ordinance for 3 dogs. So a yes vote sends the ordinance, sends it to staff to draft an ordinance. A no vote doesn't. Oh, man. So that fails on a vote of 4 to 8. So we're done.
You should probably receive and place on file.
Huh?
You should probably receive and place on file then.
Just receive and place on file? All right, so,
I'll make the motion to receive and place
all
on
right,
file.
by Alderman Moore, second by Alderman Weary, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nay. All right, okay, clerk?
Report of the Protection and Welfare Committee granting operator licenses.
Motion by Alderman Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Scannell to approve the report of the Protection and Welfare Committee granting the operating licenses. Are there any names on this report you wish to handle separately? Seeing no lights, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Receive and place on file municipal court report for September 2017 and building project report for September 2017.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Slotnick to receive and place on file the 2 reports stated by the clerk. Any discussion here? All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. It's been approved.
We're on to resolutions. You may under suspension of the rules adopt resolutions 12 through 18 together with one roll call vote.
It's a motion to suspend by Alderman Scannell, seconded by Alderman Weary. All in favor of suspension, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. The rules are suspended. Motion to adopt by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Galvin. If you use the board on this, please, 12 to 18. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Ordinance is first reading. You may under suspension of the rules advance ordinances 19 and 20 to a 3rd reading.
Motion to suspend the rules by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Galvin. All in favor of suspension, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nay. Now entertaining, rules are suspended. A motion to advance by Alderman Scannell, seconded by Alderman Galvin. Do this on a voice vote. All in favor of advance, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it.
Ordinance is 3rd reading. You may adopt ordinance 21 with a roll call vote.
Motion to adopt by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Weary. And if you just use the board on this, please. Did you clear this? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yep, I think Alderman Nicholson has his light on first. All right, Alderman Nicholson?
Entertaining late communications?
All right.
Is that where, no? Oh.
Yeah, we're good. So just a motion to suspend the rules for late communication by Alderman Moore, seconded by Alderman Slotnick. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. The rules are suspended. Late communication, Alderman Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor. Review the implementation of a fee for dog permits.
All right, thank you. And late communication, Alderman Dwayne.
Yes, this goes INS, and it's discussion with possible action.
He's got the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. To discuss with possible action the sidewalk ordinances within the city limits with possible action.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Alderman Weary?
I know we discussed it at the beginning of the meeting, budget day, moving it to 4, and I appreciate it. If we could, I'd entertain 4:30 would be appreciated, if that's okay. Half an hour difference, 4:30.
All right, hear no objection.
All right.
The meeting's at 4:30. All right, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
By Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Vanderleest. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
4:30.